I find this obviously very troubling and I think very disappointing that an officer of Parliament in a relatively new mandate and a new office that this situation has occurred. Obviously I think there are two troubling issues: the way the staff in that office were treated, but also the way that she didn't carry out her mandate. I think this is disturbing. I would like to think that this is an unusual circumstance and should not be generalized. This is a new office that was established, has a very important role to play, and I find it very troubling that the mandate was not being carried out. The files did not indicate that these complaints were being dealt with seriously. But this is certainly very troubling.
The discredited Integrity Commissioner. She's ignored a summons to appear before a parliamentary committee to answer questions about her, well, we're call it a lackluster performance, but basically she did nothing with over 200 cases. She's expected to show up on March 10th to do just that. Today we all discovered that she'll receive more than $500,000 in separation and severance pay. I asked John Barrett about it. He wasn't too happy, but he didn't say he's going to go after the money. How does the government allow someone who performs so abysmally to walk away after 3 years on a 7-year contract with $500,000, Rob?
Well, it looks like she might have sort of charmed her way into their good books. Joan Biden did a story this week showing that she had dinner with cabinet ministers, met with Wayne Waters, even though she was advised not to, was very friendly with them. If she didn't gum them to death, she was nuzzling them to death, it looks like. And you just wonder about arm's length relationships with this government. How short is that limb?
Here's the part that I think people should pay attention to, in addition to the money.
I know it's serious when you put the glasses on something heavy. Here we go.
This is part of the agreement.
Yeah.
The parties shall not engage in any criticism against each other, personally or through another person, including media representatives, on any matter in which Christiane Ouimet was involved during her appointment as Public Sector Integrity Commissioner. I think that's a problem.
It'll be interesting to see how the Conservatives treat her then.
It's not unusual that when you get a wad of cash like this, that there is that secrecy agreement involved. I think the extraordinary thing is, under what contract did she work under that had that if you quit, you get this money? Because again, being somewhat familiar with these things, you tend to get that money if the person employing you decides that you should leave the building, and that's the payout that you get. That's your insurance policy. So I don't understand how she had this contract, and I heard John Baird earlier in the show, on the Solomon show, saying that, well, that's why Stockwell Day is changing the rules. Well, if those rules have been in place and if this is a really legitimate contract, then therein lies the problem. But I will say this, I'm not so sure that be quiet agreement would actually stand up in front of a parliamentary committee. I think that once you're under oath, actually...
I think she does there, but I don't know, Tom. I agree with you that a lot of people are going to be angered about the money. I think that's what people will focus on.
Oh, for sure.
But the muzzling part of this agreement, I think, is more problematic for the reasons that you talked about, Rob, earlier, about the relationship that she's purported to have had with members of this government, because that's what a lot of what people want to know is, what kind of communication lines were open between her office and the government during her time.
Well, this raises a real question about all these watchdogs, and it's an interesting twist to this tale here. Sheila Fraser, the Auditor General, is the one that had that scathing report about Ouimet. Well, she and 6 other independent government watchdogs have put the onus back on MPs to figure this out on appointments. They've actually sent a letter, and I think Jerry, our mysterious Jerry, has got this graphic. And they're raising this question in a letter that they say, should the government do a better job basically vetting who gets these appointments? Because how can we appoint someone to a 7-year position if they are not up for the job? And they've clearly written this letter, Rob, to, it's diplomatic, but it's clearly saying this is a humiliating for all of us and diminishes all the...
Maybe some of those files are going to have to be looked at again. Because if the indication is, and it was certainly the view of the Attorney General, that this woman was not doing her job and not doing it properly, maybe some of that stuff has to be looked into a second time. Also, you're quite right. The way this is seen will ultimately be seen through a political prism. And so when the money is there, the indication that there's a gag order attached to the money, and the suspicion perhaps that the opposition will try and raise that she was just covering up stuff for the government, because that's how the opposition will play it, that is a potent political weapon that the opposition can use. And the government, the other thing that letter said, third point here, the other thing that letter said, that extraordinary letter from the other watchdogs, was, yes, the system worked to sort of root her out to show that she wasn't doing well. They're talking about the Auditor General's report. But they also went on to say, surely there's a better way to get at this stuff faster. And that is them saying, where was the criticism of Ouimet even within the government before this happened? Because you've seen John Baird now, he's absolutely distancing himself. I mean, Ouimet has become radioactive, and there's no point in supporting it. But 3 months ago, 4 months ago, where was the...
Well, can I just say, it's not just government. I mean, to be fair, it's also Parliament.
Oh, for sure, that's what I meant.
And Pat Martin readily acknowledged that they dropped the ball on this too. She reported to Parliament.
Yes.
She was before committee presenting her reports where she had done nothing, and they did nothing in response. They said, Ms. Ouimet, thank you very much.
But how scandalous is it that
she
she's waited this long to appear before committee, and she's been in Florida, but it's been unbelievable how she's thumbed her nose essentially at Parliament.
Has she, or was she instructed to thumb her nose? Did somebody advise her to do that? That's another question I would have for her. Who told you to stay away? Were you given any advice to stay away, and by whom? I think that's outrageous.
And were you told to stop staying away?